Welcome to another installment of the Advanced DRG series. In Advanced Tips, I teased a builds video where I would share team compositions suitable for missions above lethal difficulty. With help from fellow Greybeards and a few weeks of rigorous Season 5 testing, it's finally ready, so strap in, chug your smart stout, and let's rock and stone. This tutorial will cover Flame, Sludge, and Cryo compositions, as well as Scout, Gunner, and Engineer builds. Generally speaking, compositions require a healthy mixture of wave clear and single target damage. As well as this, you should always consider how to counter flying enemies, stationary threats, and bulk detonators. With all these factors in mind when coordinating builds, your team will be well prepared to face any kind of threat Planet Hoxus throws your way. Before we discuss weaponry, let's start with Driller's tools. The Hardened Drill Tips upgrade is vital to outpace bugs on increased difficulties, where bugs are much faster. Combining drill speed with slowdown effects on your primary weapon will keep you alive if you keep moving. C4 builds depend on your choice of Concussive Blast, which stuns large groups of enemies, or Rock Mover, which helps greatly with terrain carve and hold creation. As for throwables, the impact axes fit into every composition, but if you want to try something different, the Neurotoxin Grenade works well in Cryo compositions. As explained before, using their primary, Driller acts as a buffer for the team, so they can focus on weapon synergies and other enemies besides grunts and swarmers. The most popular build for the flamethrower uses sticky fuel. This overclock adds damage and duration to place flames, while maintaining an excellent ammo economy. Another build uses the Fuel Stream Diffuser overclock. This works well against rivals, and can act as a stand-in for sticky fuel type builds to some extent. When paired with the Volatile Bullets overclock on Gunner's Bulldog, many larger enemies set on fire can be removed from play with some revolver shots. To make the most of volatile bullets, Flame Comp teams lean toward more ignition options. Gunners can use Burning Hell and the Hot Bullets upgrade or Incendiary grenades. Engineer can use the Shard Diffractor, the Incendiary Compound upgrade on the Grenade Launcher, or the Inferno Overclock on the Breach Cutter. Scout can use the Thermal Exhaust Feedback Overclock for the Drac, the White Phosphorus Shells upgrade on the Boomstick, or Firebolts on the Bolt Shark. Flame compositions don't always need to depend on volatile bullets or even sticky fuel, but the general idea is that the more fire spread there is against waves, the better. Sludge compositions also benefit from these ignition sources, as bugs on fire can ignite sludge puddles. Note that some of these cannot set fire to the sludge directly. Sludge puddles provide excellent wave clear due to the slowing effect. However, despite it being a great buffer, it can be harder to use in larger caves. The Disperser Compound Overclock build is the most similar to sticky fuel due to area coverage and damage over time. More recently, there has been some interest in the Combustive Goo Mixture overclock, as this pairs well with ignition options. Some sludge enthusiasts enjoy alternative builds for single target damage, like Sludge Blast or Volatile Impact Mixture. The EPC is often paired with Sludge, but I'd like to take a second to show what is considered to be the Sabata's best use. Explosive Reload with Sludge, while niche, can be a lot of fun to play. Next we have Cryo compositions. These compositions are effective against static defenses, Clouds of Mactera, tanky enemies, and dreadnoughts. There are a handful of Cryo cannon builds that are worth highlighting, including Crystal Nucleation, Ice Spear, Improved Thermal Efficiency, and Snowball. Ice Spear, Improved Thermal Efficiency, and Snowball are all built the same, with an emphasis on ammo and sustained flow. Differing slightly from these builds, Crystal Nucleation, or Sticky Ice as it is better known, benefits from stronger cooling unit on Tier 1, and can also have more range on Tier 2 if desired. When running a Cryo composition, it is important to make sure the team doesn't bring ignition options where possible to prevent accidental enemy thawing or hinder status effect combos. The Colette Wave Cooker is quite possibly my favourite secondary to use with the Cryo Cannon. This build here is a lot of fun, as it deletes crowds of frozen grunts easily using Boiler Ray. You will notice that I have left Tier 4 empty. This is because this upgrade interferes with the heatsink upgrade on Tier 2. Alternatively, you can bring the cooker to flame compositions, using temperature shock with the diffusion ray overclock. This build is great for fire spread and slow down on swarms. While the cooker and Sabata have other builds that are useful, the most versatile secondary is definitely the EPC. The experimental plasma charger can be both a weapon and a utility tool if you use thin containment field. Using this tier 5 upgrade will allow you to mine minerals and do significant AoE damage to enemies. TCF is often paired with the persistent plasma overclock, which can help with swarmer, shocker and shredder clearance. This build complements all driller primaries, but for a more sludge specialized approach, the heavy hitter overclock with Burning Nightmare can ignite puddles. Now we come to Gunner, the Chaperone class. Let's talk about equipment, the most important being the shield. Shields with the least area coverage are unfortunately not effective, as splash damage from projectiles still hurt you. For this reason, picking one area upgrade minimum is best. With the zipline gun, I recommend upgraded connection joint or reinforced anchor on tier 1. Increased motor traction on tier 3 is also helpful for extra kiting potential. For grenades, the current standout is the lead burster due to its bulk detonator clearing ability. Cluster grenades are good at stun on demand, and incendiary ignites a lot of bugs at once. Gunner's Leadstorm builds normally specialize in single target damage, wave clear, or a combination of both. The two hybrid builds of note feature the Burning Hell overclock and the newly added Rotary Overdrive overclock. Both of these builds work well with flame or sludge comps due to their ignition abilities. If you're looking to deal serious single target damage, the Leadstorm overclock is a tried and true classic, especially during boss fights. The Bullet Hell overclock build acts as effective wave clear and is best paired with a Cryo composition to take advantage of lots of frozen targets in close proximity. The Thunderhead has a few suitable options, but one that far outpaces the rest is the Neurotoxin Payload overclock build. This build is unchallenged in terms of consistent wave clear, as it can pepper swarms with Neurotoxin and Fear, all at a distance, ensuring a good chunk of enemies never reach your team. As for the Hurricane, this weapon can be built for single target damage or wave clear. The single target builds feature the Jet Fuel Homebrew and Plasma Burster missile overclocks. The wave clear oriented builds use the Mine Layer system or the newly added Cluster Chargers overclock. When talking about gunner secondaries, there are some great alternatives that don't feature volatile bullets. On the BRT, the Lead Spray overclock build provides high single target damage and is effective in cryo compositions against frozen targets like Praetorians, Oppressors, and Dreadnoughts. Unlike the other secondaries, the coil gun is perfect for wave clear. A common choice is the Hellfire overclock build, which works well in corridors and during defense objectives. An alternative configuration is a build that uses the triple tech chambers or ultramagnetic coils overclock. Next is Engineer, the most flexible class. If there are gaps in the team's single target damage or wave clear, NG can compensate. But first, let's start with the toolset. Repellent Additive is by far the most important upgrade you can choose on the platform gun, as it makes enemies path around platforms, so choosing additional ammo for this is crucial. For the Sentry, I recommend the Gemini and Defender system combined with Stun, so you can maintain high DPS and also stagger parts of the swarm. I also recommend choosing Quick Deploy, so you can better secure the boundaries of your tunnel or open hold for the team. In terms of throwable options, all of Engineer's picks are great, but be cautious of where you area deny with proximity mines, and be careful where you throw your plasma bursters. The Warthog has some good options, including builds that use the Stunner and Magnetic Pellet Alignment overclocks. The recently added Pump Action overclock has also raised some eyebrows, so if you're interested, I recommend this build. For the Stubby SMG, it can be built to be effective at wave clear with the EM Discharge or Microconductor add-on overclock. The EM Refire and Hyperalloy Assembly overclocks are also good options if you want to focus on single target damage. The Lock 1 Smart Rifle has a number of interesting builds, including the single target powerhouse of the Executioner overclock, which is perfect for eliminations or boss fights generally. Explosive chemical rounds is also a great pick if you're more interested in clearing hordes of enemies with explosive power. More recently, the Smart Trigger operating system overclock has gained some attention, as it acts as a single target and wave clear hybrid. The grenade launcher possesses 3 distinct builds, the most notorious one featuring the Fatboy Overclock, which has limited ammo and creates significant area denial. Hyperpropellant is also an excellent choice for the BGL, as this build is great for bosses and the occasional tankier enemy. My favourite of all of them, however, is RJ250 Compound, as this gives Engineer additional utility in the form of more mobility. For the Breach Cutter, there are 2 options I recommend, both of which provide strong wave clear and stun. The first uses the Inferno Overclock and is great in flame and sludge compositions. The second option uses the recently revamped Roll Control Overclock, which fits perfectly into Cryo teams, but can technically fit in any type of composition. Lastly, the Shard Diffractor has a pair of builds that stand out. If you want to do high single target damage, Overdrive Booster is a good option to deal with larger threats. Should you want more wave clear, Volatile Impact Reactor is very effective and fun to use as it acts as a longer range version of Driller's Sticky Fuel build. Finally, we have Scout, a class that boasts utility, mobility, and team support. Let's begin with the flare gun. I like to choose more ammo, larger magazine, and flare duration, but your build can vary depending on personal preference. The grappling hook, with the exception of safety first, has good choices, so go with what feels right for you. Most of Scout's throwables are great options. Pheromones are ideal for holding a position, Cryos are good for stationaries and Magterra, and IFGs are great for choke points and team defense. Starting with the GK2, there are 2 builds I would like to show. The Bullets of Mercy Overclock helps the team deal with enemies that have active status effects applied. The other option is the AI Stability Engine Overclock build. This configuration is very precise and hits weak points with regularity. Next we have the M1000 Classic, a favourite due to the build variety and utility it can provide, including high single target damage, wave clear, team synergy, and more generalist builds. Starting with generalist builds, active stability system and minimal clips make for some good all-rounder M1000 choices. The Electrocuting Focus Shards Overclock can be built for single target damage or wave clear when combined with blow-through and IFGs. The Supercooling Chamber build is ideal against bosses or tankier targets, but does make you a little slower mobility-wise. Mark for Death is a fun new overclock which brings Scout additional team support. Using embedded detonators on the Zhukovs and cryo grenades turns Scout into a force of nature. Like the GK2, the Drac has a few good options, including the recently added Conductive Thermals overclock. This build works well on eliminations, but can sometimes struggle elsewhere. The Thermal Exhaust Feedback overclock build is much more versatile and works very well with flame and sludge comps. Bolt Shark, there are 2 builds that people tend to gravitate towards. One uses pheromone darts and is useful for clearing static enemies and stand your ground objectives. The other build makes use of the Taser Bolt upgrade, and with Bullets of Mercy on eliminations can be very effective. Last but certainly not least, we have the Boomstick. This secondary has a few builds for different use cases, but the configuration that packs the most punch uses double barrel. My favourites, however, use the Shaped Shells and Special Powder overclocks. Shaped Shells is great for precision ignition at a distance, whereas Special Powder is for extreme mobility. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more in this series, please like it and subscribe to let me know. I'm very sorry to talk over this phalanx of drillers twerking in slow motion, but I'd like to thank my community members. I wouldn't have been able to make this without you. Also, if you feel like commenting saying something about how you disagree or how you have a better idea, please do. I won't be making this video again, so share the knowledge. I also stream Hazard 5 Plus Max on Twitch if you're interested in witnessing my gradual but certain descent into a level of insanity not yet seen on this earth. I mean, do you even